Welcome to Climate Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDxLondon experts in under 5 minutes.
In this week's Climate Curious, recorded live at TED, we're talking monarch butterflies with photographer and National Geographic explorer Jaime Rojo. Monarch butterflies are unique in that late every summer, they make the same 3,000-mile journey from the US to 12 isolated mountaintops in Mexico, where they proceed to huddle on trees and wait out the winter. But the destruction of their host plant, the milkweed, where they lay their eggs, is threatening their survival. Let's hear more from Jaime. Stay curious.
Hello, my name is Jaime Rojo, and I am a photographer and a National Geographic explorer that has spent the last 20 years chasing monarch butterflies. So, the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic wildlife species in North America. It's a migratory butterfly, and they are around 7 or 8 centimeters wide, bright orange, beautiful. But what is really extraordinary about them is their migration. Their migration is one of the most iconic journeys in the natural world, and every year they do a full cycle that involves from 3 to 5 generations, and it starts in Mexico in the winter. So the migration of the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic wildlife spectacles in the world, in my opinion. And it takes from 3 to 5 generations to complete the whole cycle. And it begins in Mexico in the winter, when the butterflies that have spent there, hibernating, they start to travel back north to the USA and Canada in search of milkweed, their host plant. No, they need to lay their eggs. So the first and second generation of monarch butterflies are born and remain in the USA and Canada, and then most migratory monarchs normally belong to the third or fourth generation, and they emerge late in the summer or early in the fall when the days are starting to get shorter and it's cooler, and they can feel that, and they will undergo a hormonal change called the diapause that will put mating on hold, that will trigger a migratory instinct, and it will make them live longer, because until now these generations of butterflies, they have lived between 3 and 6 weeks. But this super generation, the one that does the long migration, will live up to 9 months, and they will make the trip back to Mexico, which is 4,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles more or less, to a place where they have never been before. That is one of the great mysteries of this migration. They can find the forest that their great-great-grandmothers left in the spring. And how they do it remains a mystery in the scientific community. These forests are located in 12 isolated mountaintops in central Mexico, and they are really remote. So it's kind of surprising that the butterflies are able to find these spots every year without ever being there. But something the scientists have been noticing is that from the 90s, when we started to measure the size of the hibernating colony in Mexico, till our days, the monarch population has suffered a 90% decline. The only measure that we have to know the amount of butterflies that arrive to Mexico every year is the size of the forest colony. The butterflies are so abundant that they cover the trees like a living tapestry. And we know that in the 90s, the colony of wintering butterflies in Mexico occupied an extension of 20 hectares, more or less. And this year, we have only seen 1.15 hectares of forest covered in butterflies. So the decline has been very dramatical. At first, the narrative was that deforestation in Mexico was causing the decline. And the international community, working with non-profits and with the local communities in Mexico, they worked very hard to mitigate the deforestation problem, to curb the deforestation level. But the numbers of monarchs continue to decline over the time. And we had to look further north to understand better what was going on. And the reason was the breeding habitat was also disappearing because of the expansion of industrial agriculture. And in the 90s, the problem got even worse because the use of genetically modified crops combined with broad-spectrum herbicides basically wiped out the native grasses from the prairies, including the milkweed. And the milkweed is essential for the monarchs because it is their host plant. Without milkweed, the butterflies can't lay their eggs and they cannot feed their caterpillars. So when the milkweed started to disappear from the prairies, the butterfly population started to collapse. And today, on top of that, we have the problem of climate change. Climate change is affecting everything. It's not just the heat, it is also the cold when it shouldn't be cold, or snowstorms or droughts. All of these little things are big disruptors in the monarch migration, and we are starting to see butterflies that never make it to Mexico because it's too warm in Texas and they decide to stay there and they lose their migratory pulsion. No? So it's a big combination of loss of habitat in the wintering sites and in the breeding area combined with climate change. So one thing I love about the monarch butterflies is that they are a great environmental indicator, because it's a migratory insect that moves across the whole region of North America. The decline of the monarchs is telling us a bigger story. It's the story of our relationship as a society with the planet, with how we produce our food, how we tender our gardens. It's a bigger story, and that's what is wonderful about these butterflies. I have spent 20 years working with the monarchs, but that doesn't mean that I only work with monarchs. No? For me, the monarchs have been like my totem species, like an underlying work that has kept me connected to something in the long term. I feel a lot of responsibility to share the truth with my images, and especially to try to change things. I would like that my work could help to create new protected areas, to protect new species, and it's easier said than done because we live in a time in which our society is flooded with beautiful images. So I think as a photographer, a powerful storytelling kit, a powerful narrative, combined with integrity and a track record that people know that you're someone that is honest and that tells the real thing. And of course, beautiful images. I always think that combination is very powerful, and I really hope it can help to contribute something to protect this beautiful planet that we live in.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
stay curious.